Okay, so we're gonna look at titration, and we're taking an acid, hydrochloric acid down here, and we're gonna be dropping sodium hydroxide into it. And as we do this, we're gonna look at three main things: the pH, the temperature, and conductivity of this solution, and see how that changes over time. And the first thing you gotta know is pH. So pH, well, if there is H plus in the solution, that makes it an acid. So it doesn't matter how much H plus there is. If there's H plus lingering without connected to anything, there will be an acid. So this is gonna be below 7. The temperature is just an arbitrary value. It's what the room temperature was that day. And right now the conductivity is fairly high. If we use the conductivity meter, we could see that. So we're gonna take this and drop this in here. So this particle of NaOH, drop it in here and see what happens. Well, what is this OH going to do? It wants to combine with the H plus here, and we're going to form water because it's an acid-base reaction. So in my next picture, I'm going to draw a water. So I'm going to write HOH. Okay. I only put one of them in, so this H plus is still unreacted. So I'll have that H plus in there. And the Na plus, well, that doesn't react with anything. Knowing the solubility rules, this is a spectator. So we're gonna keep the H plus in the solution, and we'll have an Na plus in solution. So let's just go through and see what happens to all these different things. pH, still got H plus in it, so this is still gonna be an acid. My pH is probably gonna go up more towards neutral, so it's up a little bit, but it's still below 7. What happens to the temperature? Well, we saw in our lab that the temperature went up. And the question is, well, why does the temperature go up? Well, remember, if I form a molecule, what's happening here? I'm making this bond. So I'm bond making, and whenever I make a bond, that is going to release energy. So bond making releases energy, and that's going to cause, so I have energy coming out here into the solution, and that's going to cause the solution temperature to go up. So that's why the temperature is going up. Well, conductivity, what happened there? Well, in our lab, that went down. And let's take a look and see why that is. So conductivity deals with ions, but it deals with the concentration of ions. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4 ions here, and I look at this first picture, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 ions here. The number of ions doesn't change. However, the overall volume was 4 milliliters here. The overall volume is 5 milliliters here. And so my concentration of ions is also going down because I have more liquid in this beaker. So same number of ions, more volume. Remember, it's the number of ions over the volume, and that's why that's going to go down. As we move to the next picture, I add another one. So what happens? Well, instead of one water, now I have 2 waters. So I formed 2 waters. I still have a couple Na pluses remaining because these are not reacting with anything. And my Cl negatives are still there. So what happens to the pH now? Well, I don't have H plus anymore. I don't have OH minus left over, so this is now neutral. My temperature, it keeps going up, but now it's at the maximum. And why is that? Well, we have now made all the water that we can. We're making bonds. that's releasing energy, and that's heating up the solution. Conductivity keeps going down because now my volume is at 6 milliliters. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 ions, but the concentration is going down. So this is all keeps on the same track, but this is where it turns neutral. And if I have an indicator, it changes colors at this point. And then in my last picture, if I keep adding one more drop of NaOH, okay, well, now I still have my water, I still have my Na plus and Cl minus, but this has nothing to react with anymore. So what happens? Well, now I have an extra Na plus, I have an extra OH minus, and because I have this extra OH minus, now I've turned it to a base. Okay, so my base, the temperature, we saw that the temperature starts going back down. And why is that? Well, we haven't really made anything new, so we're not making any bonds, but I'm adding more liquid, because now it's 7 milliliters. And if you add more liquid, that's the same temperature as the starting temperature. It's a little colder. Well, it's just going to make it colder. So that's by just adding the liquid. Conductivity starts to go up now. And why is that? Well, let's look at what I got in here now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 ions from before, but now I have 2 extra ions. So I have 6 ions in 7 milliliters. And because I'm adding more ions now that are not reacting, that concentration of ion is starting to go up again. So my concentration goes up, okay? And so the big thing to remember here is that conductivity depends on the concentration of ions. Okay, so concentration of ions is the big thing here. pH depends on, if I have OH, it's a base. If I have H+, it's an acid. And if I have neither, it is neutral. So here's my final notes. H+, acid, OH-, base, neither, neutral. And remember, bond forming releases energy to the solution. That's going to raise the temperature of the solution.